Well, believe it or not, guys, we are almost a quarter of the way through this year's NBA season. It's been going by super fast, man. We've seen a lot of great basketball, a lot of players making that leap into stardom and some into superstardom. The MVP race is really close-knit. The Rookie of the Year race is exciting. I mean, a lot of teams are surprising a lot of people. There's been a lot of talk surrounding a lot of these top teams, but with the good, we got to take the bad. And I mean, talk about disappointing for a lot of these teams. There's one team in particular that I want to talk about that had a blockbuster trade this offseason and had just their second playoff appearance in, I believe, the last 15 years. You can guess it. The Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, the Timberwolves coming into the season, following the year that they had last year, a lot of people looked at this team as a top seed in the Western Conference. And it made sense. They had the roster to do so. They had the coaching, they had the depth, they had the shooting, the defense, all of that. Or so we thought. So far this season, the Minnesota Timberwolves are just 7-8. They've been playing better as of late, but better for them is not saying much. I mean, this team has been pretty bad. And I mean, some may find it confusing because, like, what gives? Like, what is making this team so bad? And that's really what I wanted to talk about in today's video. I can make it simple. I mean, if we be honest, the Minnesota Timberwolves just suck. That's gonna do it for this video, guys. I hope you guys did enjoy, man. I mean, it's self-explanatory. I'm kidding. I'm not going into the video right there. But diving deeper, I mean, they kind of do just suck. I mean, what's going on with this team? Well, so there's a lot of reasons to why this team is pretty bad, but I feel like the biggest reasoning for me is the chemistry, just the coagulation of the team. You have 5 different guys with 5 different agendas essentially to push. Their starting lineup consists of D'Angelo Russell, Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, Karl-Anthony Towns, and Rudy Gobert. And on paper, I mean, it sounds good, but we can see that product is not. Anthony Edwards was the #1 pick 2 seasons ago and was expected to make a huge leap this season into at least all-stardom. What stood out most about Anthony Edwards' play has just been his laziness. I mean, at times he just looks really disinterested in what the team has going on, and that kind of fizzled in the locker room. I'm going to put a play up that the Timberwolves ran, and just look at Anthony Edwards for the entire play. What gives? What is going on with Anthony Edwards? Now, you can say some of it is Rudy Gobert's fault because on the season, I believe he has just a handful of dunks, but getting to the paint isn't as easy as it used to be considering you have Rudy Gobert clogging it up. Now, luckily for the Timberwolves, Anthony Edwards is just 21 years old and he's simply going through his growing pains. I feel like we got this notion from seeing Luka and Zion make those insane leaps that they were able to make, that we got this notion that these top 3 picks, top 4 picks have to make the same type of leap, and that just isn't the case. It takes other players longer to make that jump than it does other guys. I mean, if we look at Anthony Edwards, he's been a 20-point per game scorer his entire career. That's insane. He came into the league at 19 years old. He's only 21, bro. I mean, come on. Other than Anthony Edwards, the other go-to scorer for this team is Karl-Anthony Towns, who started the season off a little rough efficiency-wise, but has picked it up as of late. On the year, he's averaging 21 points, almost 10 rebounds, and a career-high 5 assists, which is very good to see. Some will say that Karl-Anthony Towns is the best playmaker on this team, and I could definitely agree with that statement. He's made it his mission to kind of like call out teammates, and I really like that. The biggest question mark for him has always been his defense. I mean, he's going to a new position where he's guarding more on the perimeter. He's being that weak side defender, and it's a little rocky. But again, it's not too much I can really say about Karl-Anthony Towns. I mean, he's doing what he's been doing in years past. And even with Rudy Gobert coming into the fold, he's still Karl-Anthony Towns. And we've been talking about Rudy Gobert a lot. So let's just get right into that topic. Now, can we fault the Minnesota Timberwolves for making a big trade after having their most successful season in a long time? We can't. But can we fault the Minnesota Timberwolves for trading 6 first-round picks as well as some young pieces for a center with little to no offensive game that is in his age 30 season? Yeah, I think we can. I think we definitely can. Rudy Gobert is a very polarizing player. He's excellent on defense. What he brings on that side of the ball is never questioned. For him, it's the offensive side, and it's not good. There's no post moves. I mean, when you see him try to back somebody down, he looks very weak. He looks very uncoordinated, and that's not good. And I can't fault it. The Minnesota Timberwolves' defensive rating at the very least has been all right. I mean, it is middle of the pack, so can't really complain too much considering you have guys like Anthony Edwards, who's just not interested on that side of the ball, D'Angelo Russell, Karl-Anthony Towns. But I think we can all say that if the Timberwolves could go back, they would not make this trade. You try to copy or replicate, what the Cleveland Cavaliers have going on, but it can't work considering the Cavs have 2 guys who are both elite in guarding the paint and guarding out on perimeter, as well as having an offensive game, something that Rudy Gobert does not have. Besides those 3, the biggest culprit is definitely D'Angelo Russell. Now, D'Angelo Russell is a player that I believe should have been traded years ago. I mean, I understood, trading for him at the time that you made the move. You wanted to make Cat happy, bring his best friend to Minnesota, and move off of Andrew Wiggins, who just didn't really fit. But once you drafted Anthony Edwards, you should have looked to move on from D'Angelo Russell. He's just not the same player that he was in Brooklyn. He's off to his worst start in his career. He's averaging 14.4 points per game, which is the second lowest of his career. He's shooting just 41% from the field and 32% from three. And considering the lineups and considering how D'Angelo Russell has played over the last couple of years, I don't think it's going to get better. I think the time is now to make the trade to move on from D'Angelo Russell. Look to get a point guard that doesn't need the ball in his hands as much, which would help to give more opportunities to Anthony Edwards and would free up the offense, in my opinion. And the last member of that starting lineup is Jaden McDaniels, who I really like coming out of Washington. He's a great player. I feel like he's playing great basketball this year, but he makes a lot of mental mistakes, which, again, for a guy who's 21, 22, he's going to do those things. And when we move on to the bench, it's not even like the bench is bad. The bench is very good. It consists of Naz Reid and Taurean Prince and Jordan McLaughlin. Those guys all give the Timberwolves great minutes. But what gives with the Timberwolves? I mean, what is their issue? I feel like they just suffer from things looking great on paper, but not being the same on the court. And some of that falls on the players, but some of that as well falls on coaching. I feel like Coach Chris Finch could do a better job at staggering minutes. He could do a better job at having certain players play with certain players and rolling with what works, man. I understand, you made the trade for Rudy Gobert. I understand you have D'Angelo Russell as a former All-Star, Anthony Edwards a #1 overall pick, Karl Anthony Towns a perennial All-Star, but if one of those guys is not playing well, I feel like you should bench him for an option that is playing well. And the biggest thing for them is they have to establish a culture, which they just don't have. It's a lot of ISO ball. It's a lot of me ball, and you're not going to win any games like that. And we'll see what they do come trade deadline. I kind of expect this team to make a couple of moves, but personally, I would start off with getting off of D'Angelo Russell if you can, because, I mean, the way he's playing, we don't know what the trade value is like. Do I think that the Wolves can turn this around and play better and really do their thing? I don't know. I really don't think so, just because of the fact that they don't have that culture setter. They don't have that leader, that vocal leader, that guy to really hype up the team like they had with Patrick Beverley. I mean, he was that guy for them, and who is that now? It's just a bunch of guys looking to play for themselves, man. And until they fix that, until they add that culture setter back, I think it's going to be like this for them for the remainder of the season.